pre-trib rapture. And if I say pre-trib, pre-tribulation. Jesus gave some warnings in Matthew 24, and then I used a couple of clips from Luke 21. So remember, we're gonna read through what Jesus said, and we're gonna think which view is more biblical, and which one fits better. Which one fits better? Now, there's arguments for both, of course. There are scholars and pastors who believe in both of these things, but which one's more biblical? Which one fits better? In Matthew 24:3, while Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. "Tell us," they said, "when will all this happen? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" Jesus answered, "See to it that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming I am the Christ, and will deceive many." So we know at the end of the age, and prior to the end of the age, people are going to deceive the church, and people are going to be deceived. Jesus is warning us. And people will come saying that they are Jesus. He says, "You will hear wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. These things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. Then they will hand you over to be persecuted and killed, and you will be hated by all nations on account of my name." So, all these things will happen at the beginning of the end. This isn't the full tribulation. This is just, per verse 8, this is the beginning of the birth pains. But does he say don't worry, you're going to get raptured? Don't worry, I'm going to come get you first? He says no. He says, then they will hand you over to be persecuted and killed, and you will be hated by all nations. All nations are now together on account of my name. At that time, many will fall away and will betray and hate one another. Many Christians will fall away and will betray and hate one another. You know, we know this as Christians, because if you don't already belong to Jesus, you can't fall away from him. He says, and many false prophets will arise and mislead many. Because of the multiplication of wickedness on the earth, the love of most will grow cold. So despite what our post-millennial friends and brethren would say, the earth doesn't keep getting better and better. In some ways, throughout history, we've seen when Christianity takes hold in a country, it does help in ways, and it does bless them and make the country more prosperous and more free and more godly. However, as a whole, the whole world, it's not going to happen. The love of most will grow cold because of the over saturation of the wickedness. 13. But the one who perseveres to the end will be saved. The one who perseveres to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. This, to me, does not sound like we are missing this. It sounds like we are going to be here for it. 15. So when you see standing in the holy place is the temple in Jerusalem that will be established again, the abomination of desolation, the thing that happens in the temple that is blasphemous and wicked beyond belief, described by the prophet Daniel. Let the reader understand. And this is, we know this from other scriptures in Daniel, that this is the half point. This is the half point of the tribulation. When that happens, that's the half point. That's when the Antichrist's true colors are revealed, at the 3.5 year mark of the 7 years. He says, then let those in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop come down to retrieve anything from his house. Get out. Don't even pack. Get out. And let no one in the field return for his cloak. Go. When this happens, get out. How miserable those days will be for pregnant and nursing mothers. It's going to be harder for them to get away. Pray that your flight will not occur in the winter when it's more difficult to travel, or on the Sabbath when in Israel a lot of things are closed, and on Sabbath a lot of things are closed. So it will be harder to leave. 21. For at that time there will be great tribulation, unmatched from the beginning of the world until now. So this is the great tribulation. Now, he also says, and never to be seen again. So when we're thinking about these two views we're looking at, the one says there will be this massive tribulation, Jesus returns, millennial reign on earth, then Satan comes again and causes all this destruction again, gets the whole world up against Jesus again. But Jesus is saying here, it'll be unmatched from the beginning of the world until now, which means it'll be worse than the flood, and never to be seen again. So he says, if those days had not been cut short, nobody would be saved. Meaning, there are people that are going through the tribulation who are not already Christians. Maybe they're Jews, maybe they're Muslims, maybe they're atheists, who knows? But some of those people will be converted during that and saved during it. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. If it was too grueling for a long time, people might not turn and give their hearts to Jesus. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here's the Christ, or there he is, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders that would deceive even the elect, if that were possible. See, I have told you in advance. So we already know that there's going to be the Antichrist and the false prophet, but there will be lots of false Christs and false prophets. There have been for nearly 2,000 years, coming and going, and there will be a lot more at the end as Satan's hordes get released from the abyss and they're able to do more and more evil. But do not believe it. So if they tell you, there he is, there Jesus is, in the wilderness, do not go out. Or here he is in the inner rooms. Do not believe it. So here is when Jesus tells us how he will return. It won't be in a secret way. It won't be a secret rapture. It won't be in a temple somewhere. It won't be, he won't appear to only the church in one way or only Israel in one way. For just as, 27, just as the lightning comes from the east and flashes as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. It's going to be incredible, and everyone's going to see it. Wherever there is a carcass, there the vultures will gather. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. And I'm going to cut over to Luke real quick, and then we're going to pick back up right where we left off in Matthew. In Luke 21:25, it says, there will be signs in the sun, and this is the same, it's the same account. He's given the same story, but we get extra details in Luke. There will be signs in the sun and moon and stars, and on the earth dismay among the nations, bewildered by the roaring of the sea and the surging of the waves. Men will faint from fear and anxiety over what is coming upon the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. At that time they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And then he says, when these things begin to happen, he's talking to Christians, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. When you see these things begin to happen, stand up and lift up your heads. That would suggest to me that we're here when this happens. We're not in heaven watching it happen. Back to Matthew. At that time, the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn. Why will the tribes of the earth mourn? This is because the people who have started to, they're with the Antichrist. They've established him. They believe that they are doing the right thing. They think that the Antichrist is the real Messiah. They think that the false prophet is the real Jesus. They think that the next one to come will be an enemy of Satan. So this only makes sense if you understand an Islamic eschatology perspective, that what I believe is that Islam will be part of this end time system. And the Antichrist will eventually use Islam. He'll either be a Muslim or he'll use the Muslim faith and bring it with it. But they will see the Son of Man coming, and they're not going to think, oh, thankfully Jesus is coming to save everything. They're going to think all the destruction that they're doing and hurting everybody on the earth, they're persecuting Christians and Jews, they're going to think that's the right thing to do, and they're going to see Jesus coming and think he's the enemy. That's the only way that makes sense, that all the tribes of the earth will mourn when Jesus comes. After all the destruction we just heard about, they should be happy. But they're gonna all that destruction they're gonna think was part of something good that they were causing to happen. And Jesus is gonna come and they're gonna mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. So this isn't a quiet, secret rapture before or even in the middle of the tribulation. When Jesus comes, he comes with glory and with a loud trumpet call, and he's gathering his elect from the earth. This is shaking the whole entire earth. This is not a secret thing that happens. It's not quiet. The trumpet is meant to announce his arrival. No one knows about that day or hour, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. And that's just because Jesus allowed himself, he's speaking in his humanity here, and he has limited his knowledge as a man on earth. I am sure that once he was resurrected and ascended back into heaven, he probably knows this. Now, but he says, as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be at the coming of the Son of Man. As it was in the day of Noah, when it happened quickly and then the whole earth was impacted by it. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they were oblivious until the flood came and swept all of them away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. They are not going to see it coming. He says, two men, and this is where the rapture, the support of the rapture idea come from. He says, two men will be in the field, one will be taken and the other left. Two women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day on which your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in which watch of the night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So, is what he's saying here that the church will be raptured up, and then another person will be left behind? That the entire Left Behind series is based on this idea, even though it seems to be out of fit with all the things we've already looked at so far. So what is he saying? Well, for one, he says, be ready. Be ready. For this reason, you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. Who then is the faithful and wise servant, whom the master has put in charge of his household, to give the others their food at the proper time? This is the church. We have lots of parables about this where Jesus he says, I've put you're to take care of these things until I return. 46, blessed is that servant whose master returns and finds him doing his job. Truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all of his possessions. So when Jesus returns, those whom he finds doing the right thing will be put in charge of all of his possessions. But suppose that servant is wicked and says in his heart, my master will be away a long time. And he begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with drunkards. The master of that servant will come on a day he does not anticipate, and at an hour he does not expect. But what does he do? Does he leave that bad servant there and then take the good ones with him? No. 51 says, then he will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, which is always a reference to eternal hell. So when Jesus comes, those whom he finds not doing, and he says, he'll assign him a place with the hypocrites. This is not an unbeliever who never knew anything. This is someone who acted like they knew Jesus, called themselves a Christian, said they were one of God's people, but they're a hypocrite. And when Jesus came, they were not living the way you're supposed to be. And they were not left behind to deal with the tribulation. They were cast into hell. So when Jesus comes, he makes that decision. Those who come with me and those who are left behind. Those who are resurrected to life and those who are given eternal death. See, when we take a text like this and we just pay attention to a couple of verses, it's very easy to jump to these kind of conclusions. And this is actually what Satan tries to do. But if we just keep reading the whole of God's Word, these things start to come into clearer focus. In the Luke 21 parallel, we'll pop over there. He says, but watch yourselves. Jesus speaking. Watch yourselves, or your hearts will be weighed down by dissipation, by a brokenness and an anxiety, a lack of perseverance and fortitude, and you just kind of, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. A drunkenness and the worries of life. So the Christian who doesn't watch themselves lets all these other things, especially during the tribulation, get to them and get under their skin and start to drag them down. He says, and that day will spring upon you suddenly like a snare. But remember what we just read. You can't just be a Christian and then fall away in the last years. It's how you are when Jesus returns is how he's going to receive you. Suddenly like a snare, 35. For it will come upon all who dwell on the face of the whole earth. So not just those who were left behind, all who would dwell on the face of the whole earth. 36. So keep watch at all times, and pray that you may have the strength to escape all that is about to happen and to stand before the Son of Man. And the escape there, it does not mean that you may get to leave and not have to deal with this. That escape means a way through it. It's not an escape from the tribulation, it's an escape through the tribulation. It's pray that you may have the strength to get through this and all that is about to happen. Okay, so I think Jesus makes it fairly clear, but we're going to keep on plugging along. Are you benefiting from this teaching? Do you think more people need to know this? Are you doing your part to obey the Great Commission to make disciples and to create revival? Get empowered and start making a difference today. You can help by subscribing to our channel to get notified of all new videos. Share this video on your social media channels. Support our ministry so we can continue to make and spread more content like this. Make a one-time donation of any amount or partner with us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. There's also many free ways to get involved in the movement. We ask that you would prayerfully consider stepping up. You can purchase either individual lessons or full series at an even greater discount. You'll receive the full lesson as a single HD video without any ads or banners on it. You'll also receive the study guide that goes with it with fill-in-the-blanks, follow-up questions to discuss with your small group. You'll also receive the entire slideshow, both the PowerPoint and a PDF version that goes with it so you can teach from it your own way. These can be used in traditional churches from the pulpit, Bible studies, or small groups. Consider starting your own home church or study group. Jesus said the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Use our tools and get started harvesting today.